simple, very simple macrame plant hangers. And let me show you what you're going to need for this project. You're going to need a ruler or, just markings of a set distance, but a ruler is the easiest way to do that. You're going to need some sort of the material you want to hang with, and this can be anything you want. Traditionally, you would make this out of macrame cord. This is some fabric yarn. It doesn't have too much of a stretch. That's really helpful when you're first starting out, and macrame cord will not have a stretch. You're going to want 4 pieces that are 4 feet in length. And then a pair of scissors will be useful, a pencil or something if you're going to use beads, which is also something you can have. If you're going to use beads, you can use the pencil to push it through the macrame cord through. So let's get started. Like I said, this is very simple. You're going to have your 4 strips or rope or cord or twine or whatever you want to use, evened up at the end. And you're going to fold it in half. So bring the cut ends together. And you can even these up if you want, but if they're, oh gosh, I got really uneven there. Let me try that one more time. So bring your 4 ends together so you have 8 ends all together. I'm just going to trim these so they're a little bit more even. So no surprises there at the end. All right, so you folded it in half, and we're just gonna do a simple overhand knot here to make a loop at the top. So make a big knot at the top. Pull that tight. You wanna like I said, leave a little bit of a loop, but then pull it tight towards the end so that you want it to be really tight, but you don't need this loop to be giant by any stretch of the imagination. Still gives you lots to play with as far as making the plant hanger. So we're going to pair off these strips, and we're gonna measure 12 inches for this first knot. And like I said, this is super simple. We're not doing any fancy knots. You know what, I'm gonna go with 10 inches. It really doesn't matter, but you can play with it you just want it to be consistent with the space. So I'm putting the tied knot here at the end, and I'm going to the 10-inch mark. And so that's where I'm gonna do my first set. I'm tying 2 together and just a simple overhand knot. And I make it a little loose, and then I measure, and I pull it tight down to the 10 inches. And if there is any stretch in it, you want to pull that stretch tight, because you're gonna have a plant in here, or a goldfish bowl, and you want to know what the stretch is gonna be like. So there we go, 10 inches. That being said, if it's a little bit off, a few millimeters, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it. All right, so we have our first pair tied together. Find a second pair and do the same. They do tend to kind of fall into pairs by them, kind of naturally, so try to keep them together so you're not fighting against that. Again, just measure down to 10 inches or 12 or 15, however long you want this to be, but I'm gonna do 10 inches just so we're gonna keep this pretty short. Do an overhand knot again, the same exact technique, and this is gonna be the only knot we're using. Like I said, pretty simple, not too fancy. Haha, not. So anyway, pull it taut so you can see, make sure you got the right length. We're gonna do the same thing again. You're gonna see that this is just kind of repeating the pattern. All right, so 10 inches, overhand knot. Okay, so we have 4 knots that are tied approximately the same spot on each of these 2 double strips. So we're gonna, now if you want to put beads and things on here, this is where you need to start making decisions like that. So you could put it above the knot or below the knot, it doesn't really matter. I am gonna go ahead and put some beads on here. Let me show you how that works. I'm gonna take the same pair of fabric strips here, or cord or rope or whatever, and then you can use your pencil or your scissors to kind of push them through, and you're gonna take them all the way up to the knot there. And then do the same thing on the other 4 pairs of fabric strips here. You can, this is some fabric strip that I bought as yarn, but you can also make this out of t-shirts so easily. It's basically it's the same material. You can do this project with any material that you have that you can make into strips, because it is very forgiving when it comes to that. Okay, so. These, again, beads are 100% optional, and it's just if that's what you want it to look like here. So we're going to tie another set of knots, but this time we're going to pair up different strips here. So we're going to pair up these two, these two, these two, and then we'll go around and pair up these two on the outside. So I'm going to start with these. I'm going to measure these to be 3 inches from this bead, just to have a consistent measurement. So, I'm going to actually do it this direction, sorry. So we get the 3 inches. I'll lay that out all again. It's not super important that you keep these all in order, but in the end, if you get them too tangled, it does not. It will make it a little bit more difficult to get your pot in there. So like I said, I'm going to pair these two together. I'm going to put these beads right up against the end of the ruler and measure down 3 inches and tie again that simple overhand knot. Keep it loose, and then you can measure it out and pull it tight. Now we're going to do these two, the next two over. Again, measure down from the bottom of the bead. These measurements are genuinely like whatever works for your project. So you might want to mess around if you're using some very special materials with like just some twine or something like that, just to test out the measurements to make sure it'll fit if you want a very specific fit for your stuff. Once you get these down, you can whip them up in like 5 minutes. They make, if you're giving someone a gift of a plant, they make a lovely little thing to go along with your gift. So, all right, same thing. All right, so now we've come to the 2 outside ones. Get rid of these guys, get them out of the way. Measure, it's going to be the same thing, but basically you've just made a little basket out of your cord or your fabric or whatever you're using for this project. All right, so these are all straightened out. You've made a little basket here, but the last step is going to be tying off the bottom. Because this one's a thicker material, I'm going to do a little bit different of a knot. I'm going to do a square knot, so it will work just the same. But if you are using thinner, more reasonable material, I would recommend using just the overhead knot again, because this one is kind of clunky, but let me get it real tight. Okay, all right, so there we have our little basket. Not the prettiest knot on the bottom, but we can solve that. I'm gonna use this little guy for my pot, because yellow on yellow on yellow on yellow, why not? So he just goes in there like that, and straighten him up and move stuff around to make it all pretty. And I'm gonna trim the bottom of this knot because I don't like how that looks. And it's mine, so I can make it look however I want it to look. But if you're using macrame cord or something that frays, you can just brush it out and it can become a tassel. You can leave it messy, you can do whatever you want. All right, so cool, good enough for me. Ooh, don't fall out. All right, so then you're gonna get a hook, slip it through here, slip it through this guy, and you can hang it up like these over here. These are some alternate materials that I've used to make some different hangers. The first one over here is just jute twine, so that's nothing fancy. Then I have some little black strapping that I had laying around, and some neon leather strapping laying around. I don't even know where that came from, but anyway. And this one is interesting because instead of knots, I just used beads. So there wasn't any, this material wouldn't have been very great to knot with, so I just used beads instead of knots. And that worked really great. It's also nice because you can change it according to how you want it to hold your planter. And then the one on the end is using some strips of recycled silk. So you can use really anything that you have laying around the house or works for your situation, and you can have yourself a hanging planter.